right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Been There, Watch That, where we watch and review movies and TV shows, new and old. I'm Justin. I'm joined by Joe and Dave. And we've got a website. Check out, and you can go back and look at other reviews we've done in the past. And we'll give you a breakdown of our scores as well as some scores from IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, see how it all stacks up. That's beentherewatchedthat.com. Then we've also got Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, which you could access by going to BTWT Pod. And all these are hosted by Anchor.fm, and we're just coming out of Mad Max week, or the series. We did a series on Mad Max Road Warrior, which had some lukewarm reactions to Mad Max. And actually, for fun, I just went ahead and watched the Thunderdome. And I had hinted that would have been my first burnt popcorn score. For everyone out there, we do burnt popcorn, which is just terrible. Then small, medium, large, and mop bucket, an ode to our local and historic movie theater. That's their biggest popcorn size you can get is the mop bucket. So I don't think we've had one of those yet, or maybe we did. Well, let's bring the rest of the guys in. Joe and Dave, welcome.
All right. Thank you, Justin. And as always, been there, watch that. So this week was my pick. And I chose National Lampoon's Animal House. And Joe, we're coming off of Mad Max. It's got to be better, right?
It has to be. Now, Justin, I have to ask, you said you watched the next movie in the Mad Max series? Yeah, and you said you did that for fun. Now, is that for fun or is that more like self-punishment? Because if it's anything like the first two movies, you're just glutton for punishment.
I guess maybe a completist type thing. Like, oh, well, I got to see them all now. I started the ball rolling, so.
I'm like that to a point, but on Mad Max, I'm willing to make the exception.
Yeah, I'll do you a favor.
Beyond Thunderdome wasn't terrible. I mean, I don't know. Who Run Bart Down? Come on now. Anyway.
Yeah, this we haven't reviewed it, but Dave's kind of getting me caught up on National Lampoon stuff that maybe I saw a long, long time ago, but I do not remember it all. And I watched Caddyshack and now Animal House, which I watched just last night.
Which we were talking about Caddyshack because we had one of our high school golfers, and we're like, it's a staple. If you're a golfer, and Justin, you're a golfer as well, it's one of those things. It's just a staple. So now, coming back to Animal House, I don't know, is this a college fraternity staple that you just have to see, or I don't know. We'll sort it out as we get going, though. So,
yeah.
So Animal House.
Just curious, do you know the rating on it?
Is it on IMDb?
Well, no, the R, PG-13, where it falls there.
R.
Yeah, I figured. There was some F-bombs being dropped.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rated R.
And what year was this movie?
It was released in 1978. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. It was released in 1978.
Yeah, it's set in 1962, released in 78. So that kind of makes some sense now.
Yeah, kind of the very first opening scene is like the Faber College, 1962. That's where it starts on this college campus.
So do you guys want to run down on the synopsis and a few of the stars?
Okay.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, Donald Sutherland was kind of the big deal there that kind of made the movie happen. And he's kind of an icon, so that really helped the movie have a little bit of traction, I think.
And I always heard about John Belushi. He's just became really famous maybe after this. But
yeah, it was his first movie. Yeah,
that's who you think of. Even though he's not the main character, a lot of people kind of glommed onto him as their favorite character of the movie. If you see posters in a college student's dorm room, it's going to have John Belushi on it.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Dave.
Well, I just, that's one of those things where I read in this when I went online and did a little bit of research that he was actually doing SNL. And so he would do Monday through Thursday on the movie, and then he would do Thursday night until Sunday with SNL. So it was a big springboard for him.
Yeah, and one being in California and the other being New York, so constantly flying back and forth. I mean that.
Yeah, but it was his big break. It kind of took him there, and SNL kind of was his big break as well. So I could see where he wouldn't let go of either one.
Right.
But hey, dedication for that guy, willing to knock him out.
Right. So the synopsis of National Lampoon's Animal House is: Farber College has one frat house so disreputable it will take anyone. It has a second one of white Anglo-Saxon rich young men who are so sanctionous that no one can stand them except for Dean Wormer. The dean enlists the help of the second frat to help the boys of the Delta House get them off campus. The dean's plans come into play just before the homecoming parade to end all parades for all time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, pretty simple plot. Has a lot of gags and gaffes in it. But, really, it had a lot of things. For 1978, it had a lot of things depicting the 60s. And I don't know how much you guys noticed, but there's a lot of race issues in there, and a lot of racial gags, so to speak, and gaffes. There was some politics, a lot of sexism, tackling kind of the social issues of the time. Did you guys notice any of that? Did any of that kind of strike a bell?
When I saw it, it was like, it's one of those movies that if it was tried to be made today, first run, I don't think it would be acceptable. And I'm not talking personally, I'm just saying the way society reacts to things today.
Oh, yeah.
And what I found hilarious was when I was doing my research last night that there was one of the directors was really cautious. He was very cautious on the whole racial issue.
Oh, yeah.
That he was afraid of receiving a lot of backlash in the Black community over it. And he actually had the personal sit down viewing with, I can't remember the comedian's name right off the top of my head. He was
Richard Pryor, maybe?
That's it, Richard Pryor. And so Richard Pryor sat down and watched it, and they asked him, said, "What do you think?" He said, "It's hilarious, and white people are explicative crazy."
Yeah.
So he loved it. So Richard Pryor, being kind of the face at that point, or having a lot of influence in the Black community, watched it and goes, basically, there's nothing wrong with it. It's great. It's hilarious. Go ahead and roll with it. So they kind of got his blessing to go ahead and roll it out to the masses.
And it led to a lot of different things. I saw in the review that John Belushi got the idea to form the Blues Brothers while he was shooting this. And he took it back to Dan Aykroyd. And Dan Aykroyd was actually recruited to be in the movie, and he turned it down.
Really?
So, yeah, they had a lot of they wanted Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd. They had all these big names, and they all turned it down, which led to Donald Sutherland being the big draw. And just a little fact there, Donald Sutherland did not believe in the movie, so he took an upfront fee of $75,000. And when the movie grossed, it was the highest grossing comedy ever at that time with $141 million. He ended up passing on an extra $4 million if he'd have took a part of the gross profits, but he did not, because he didn't think it'd be that good. Yeah, kind of crazy. Bad gamble on Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, he thought he would make more by just getting some money up front.
Yeah, but he was only there for 3 days. For his part in the movie, it took him 3 days, so he was in and out. Didn't see the rest of it. Didn't have any idea where it's going. 1978. I feel this was pretty risky because it did have a lot of race stuff in it. Had a lot of politics stuff in it. Had a lot of sexism in it. Had a lot of sexual content in it for the time.
Yeah.
So, big risk there. So. Let me ask you, just because I can't wait any longer, did you guys notice the elephant in the parade?
No.
So I did, and I was like, that is the weirdest thing ever. And I had to rewind back. I say rewind, but it's all digital. But you know, I had to go back and look. And at one point, right before the parade started, an elephant's seen walking across the street and just kind of cruises through the scene. And then later in the parade, you see it cruise by as part of the parade with a guy holding it. And I thought, man, that's odd. I don't know that I've ever seen a town parade that had an elephant. You know, you see those at the circus, but, you know, in a parade.
Yeah.
So, you know, anyway, little tidbit. If you're out there and you're watching, going to say, all right, I got to go see Animal House because of our review here, then, yeah, look for the elephant in the parade time.
Did you happen to catch a timestamp on that when the elephant was?
No, it was just in the parade section. So it's in the last, you know, little bit of the movie there, last 20 minutes probably.
Okay.
But yeah, you're going to go look, aren't you, Joe?
No, not right now, because I'll end up watching it again and completely zone out. So on the cast of characters, you know, we talked about Donald Sutherland, John Belushi. Here's one that surprised me. This was Kevin Bacon's first movie.
Mm-hmm. You know, and they didn't recognize him at the showing, and they wouldn't let him in. Security wouldn't let him in with the other actors, so he had to sit in the back with the regular crowd.
Wow.
And he didn't have enough pull, and he wasn't noticed enough at that point that anybody missed him, I guess. I mean, how bad is that? That, you know, I'm in the movie, for real, I'm in the movie, but nobody realizes you're not there.
So what I'd like to see is talk to the usher of that event that turned Kevin Bacon away years later going, that's the guy I wouldn't let sit down front.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. He comes in pretty early in the movie, I'm thinking, well, he's going to be a major character, but pretty minor for the most part. He has a few lines really here and there.
Yeah, knowing Kevin Bacon's career, it shocked me too that he didn't have a bigger role until I went and researched and found out this was his first role. It's like, well, okay, that makes sense then. But, you know, sitting here, you know, knowing his career, it's like, why didn't he have more of a part? And it's like, well, at that time he had no part. It's like, okay, that makes perfect sense.
He's lumped in with kind of the bad guys of the movies, the people you're not supposed to like. And he plays a pretty good, just kind of cocky, arrogant guy that looks down upon the main protagonists of the story, which are the little more freewheeling, less stiff, less conservative. That's how it kind of sets up the movie, that the stiff upper echelon of the college wants these partiers out, and the partiers are kind of portrayed as the good guys in this.
Yeah, isn't that kind of crazy to think that the good guys are the guys that are rebelling against the social stature and just freewheeling, as you said? I think that's a good way to describe them. They're just freewheeling and
causing mayhem.
They have their big parties. They have their big toga party, even though they're in trouble. They have it anyway. And a lot of things come to light through all that.
To play up, just kind of make their parties seem crazier, they do a whole scene where it kind of follows these two young, they're like pledges, basically, guys that are looking for a frat to join, and they come. It's called the Delta House, I think.
Yeah, Delta.
It's just like there's just bottles being shattered against walls like every couple seconds. It's just like, this is how crazy the party is. That there's
and that kind of bothered me a little bit, just because like at one point when Kent Dorfman, one of the main pledges there that they follow, brings his girlfriend, you know, a bottle whips right by her head, you know, but they don't even blink at it. They just kind of, okay, come on in. And I'm like, that would be it was so inconsiderate and dangerous, and just, you know, who would hang out in that situation where people were just throwing bottles, whizzing them by people, you know? So that part bothered me a little bit. I was kind of like, yeah, the rest of it, maybe a little realistic, but that's going a bit far.
Yeah.
But, you know, the whole movie kind of went a bit far. So
there's like the preppy guys who pretty much look down on these young pledges, but they're like, oh, here's the captain of the swim team. Here's the head of the newspaper, like all the best, most prestigious people on campus. And then the people that end up accepting them and, you know, taking them in are the lowly frat that's doesn't have any sort of respectable members, really.
Yeah. Did you guys notice? Did you think anything about it when they went into the more higher echelon fraternity, and they kept walking them over to sit with the same group when they tried to wander away? And it was, you know, a foreign student, you know, a minor student, and then a blind deaf student in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Just kept parking them there, and
they take him over there, and everyone just looks at him. No one has any social abilities, so everyone just kind of stares. Everyone stares at each other like, "What are we doing over here in the corner?" Yeah, and they kept calling him Lonnie, Larry. I have to believe his name, and it kept. I don't know. The movie had some funny just shots of facial expressions and little things. The one thing that made me laugh was he keeps going around. These pledges have their name tags, and they don't care to remember his name, so they keep calling him Lonnie instead of Larry.
Lenny, yeah, everything but Larry.
At one point, he like looks down at his name tag just to make sure, like, do I have the wrong name tag on or something? That it just made me laugh a little bit. Just small things like that in the movie.
Yeah, and there was lots of those little tidbits thrown in there.
Just little facial expressions. And John Belushi, I thought he did a good job with just funny little zany facial expressions throughout the movie. Yeah.
Dressing up as a pirate at the end, I think, was the seal of the deal to that.
The scene that killed me was the cafeteria scene.
Yeah, where he's stacking food up on the tray. Yeah, that cracked me up too. Yeah.
And here's what I found out, that entire scene was improvised.
Yeah, that was funny.
When he started piling the food on, the director, John Landis, told the camera operator, stay on him. And then the infamous "I'm a zit" gag was also improvised. So the reaction from the people sitting at the table, that was their real reaction of him just, "I'm a zit, get it?"
Yeah,
shoving cake in his mouth and then puffing his cheeks up and popping it at the preppy kids, and then they try to beat him up, basically. Yeah.
So
I wonder how different this movie would have been, because they actually were casting like Chevy Chase for Otter, the main character in the fraternity, Bill Murray for Boone, who was the second main character, Dan Aykroyd for D-Day, John Belushi for Bluto, and Belushi was the only one committed to it. The rest of them were all grabbed up by Saturday Night Live, so it's just bad timing. But I wonder if the movie would have been different if they'd had those A-line actors in those places, because it kind of set the stage. And I know the guy that played Otter, he played in other movies like Up the Creek and stuff like that, and kind of got himself in a little bit of a major roles here and there, a little bit of a boon for his career, I guess. And some of the other ones like Dean Wormer, he was in a lot of stuff after that. And of course, Belushi blew up. So it could have been a different movie. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I would have, I like Chevy Chase, but I'm not a diehard Chevy Chase fan. So I don't
looking at it now, I don't think Chevy Chase or Bill Murray would have been good for either one of those. I think they nailed it with the two guys they had.
I think Bill Murray would have been a good pick just to see how they would have used him. I think that might have put a little extra polish on it, but I don't think Chevy Chase would have brought the kind. And no disrespect to his career, I mean he's done great, but I just don't see at that point how Chevy Chase would have put that much more polish on it, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, I thought the actors that they had did a great job.
Absolutely.
The mayor's daughter, she's the same girl from Caddyshack. She's one of the main characters in there, I think, if I'm recognizing it correctly. Yeah. There's a couple people that's like, she looks kind of familiar, or he looks familiar. It seems like there's probably a good bit of that going on with National Lampoon, a little crossover, people being in multiple movies, I would think.
And it's weird that you bring her up. So did you guys notice at the very end of the movie that she said she was 13?
Yep, a little weird.
Yes.
That was that was a low blow, I think, by them. But she was actually 18 years old when the movie's made, so it wasn't a big deal there. But it actually led to the obscenity laws in the United States being changed so that nude imagery of minors in sexual situations, whether they were actual or depicted, was banned. So this film actually had an impact on how movies are made with underage minors and whether it's actual or depicted. So
yeah, it's the type of thing there's just no possible way that'd be allowed today, even if it wasn't on paper. Just even like Joe said, the way our sensibilities have changed a little bit, society would not be on board with that at all. Yeah,
that's just crazy. After watching this and seeing as just one of these great comedies, kind of a goof movie, that it takes Animal House to be the thing that the government goes, yeah, we should fix that. It's like, of all these movies and entertainment material out there, the Animal House is one of our pillars of society that we judge things on. That
positive social change.
Yeah.
Now the other part I thought about when I was thinking about those situations, she was a checkout person working in a grocery store at 13. Mm-hmm. So it kind of didn't catch that one, I don't think. So she's 13, but she's working as a checkout clerk in a store.
And letting them steal tons of stuff from the store and just being like, I don't care, I won't tell on you. It's like, it's kind of weird.
I can kind of see that though.
Yeah.
I don't run the place, whatever, Yeah. Too much effort for me. Have at it. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about the politics. So I had a little bit of politics in there. Of course, the villainous Dean Wormer, he was almost played out as Richard Nixon, kind of behind the scenes, taking bribes and, doing things with the mayor. The mayor talked to him about extortion. He's like, yeah, you say that again, I'm going to have somebody break your legs, and he laughed it off and said, well, I think we can take some of the student money and, make this happen. But they claimed he wasn't based on Richard Nixon, but it was set in that same time where, that kind of stuff was highly related to politics, and ironically still is today. But
there's kind of a Law and Order theme a little bit, because there's that whole courtroom scene, basically a student judiciary thing where they're trying to rule on whether the Deltas should be kicked off campus for all their shenanigans, and he kind of pits the more military-esque buzz cut against more of a hippie type crowd. There's those themes going on with people that are laying down the law and people that are saying "get off me, man" type thing.
Yeah, and it's funny, because they played them all out in the favor of the good guys, which were the bad guys, really. I mean, they were the ones breaking the rules and causing havoc, but they, give a speech about being American, and if you're against this, then you're against America, and we're not going to stand here. We're going to march out of here. So they marched out, no actual action is taken, and they, he yells at them one more time, just one more thing, and so they kind of get away with it time and time again. And I think one of the big lines that's always played across that people sometimes remember: double secret probation.
Yes, that's where I was going to go with. I was like, how can you be on double secret probation and not know about it?
Yeah.
They try to make the more clean cut, respectable guys seem bad. In some ways, the device they use is picking on the chubbier kid that's basically making him shovel manure out of the stables and making him do push-ups and hazing him to no end and calling him worthless. And that's kind of how they set them up. But these are bad guys because they're mean to this kid.
Yeah,
Bullies.
bullies. And it's funny though, they placed him in the military situation, which I think at the time was a nod to the social change that we were having in the 70s, and that they did have in the 60s, where, the Vietnam War was paramount. At the end of the 70s when this was made and released, the Vietnam War is still fresh in everyone's mind. So they had kind of the military guys there, sometimes as peacekeepers, like in the parade, and other times, part of the college, and linked to the college. So the bad guy, Needlemeyer in the movie, he rides around on the white stallion and takes advantage of his position there, and is the main bully. And so it just kind of played into that social happenings of the day and kind of their own little protest, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was a little weird. There's a group of college kids, and they basically go to a club where they're the only white people there. It's a black club, and I was thinking, maybe things are going to be a little tense at first and weird, but everybody's going to get along or something. But it kind of just turned into they ended up running away, or like, I don't know. It just didn't seem like didn't have any sort of positive spin. I was just like, oh, let's get out of here. We're white or something. It's a little weird, that thing.
I think they kind of played both sides of it. And, you had the biggest one that stands out in my mind is in the parade. You had the two hands shaking, a black one and a white one. And, and so they're kind of like, all right, you know, solidarity. And so for the time, that was a pretty big message. And then at the end of the parade, it gets broken in half, you know, and then one hand runs into the car dealership. And, you know, and you tie that in with Otis Day and the Knights came into their fraternity party, you know, and it was awesome. They had a big party and the band was great. You know, and Otis Day was definitely made it memorable for that part. But then they
that was cool. I like that whole musical thing. They kept the music going. That's
the soundtrack for this is amazing.
High energy. That's kind of a cool scene. I like that.
Yeah, and they were on a side note, they didn't think the guy that they pulled in originally, the administrative crew, didn't like the studio didn't like the choice for the sound guy because he had done some older films and they're just like, I don't think this will work, but he made it work really well. But anyway, so then they had the scene that you're talking about in the bar where you know these underage kids walk in and are accepted, but they're the only white people there. But it wasn't terrible. You know, the guy Boone orders drinks at the bar and the guy pulls out a switchblade and you know, it's like, don't even look and talk to me, you know, and then they come over and intimidate and want to dance with their girls. So, and then they sprint out. So like no harm, no foul, but there was that undertone of, you know, you just don't cross the train tracks, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I thought it was funny too, like when Boone, the character, is at the bar ordering drinks and he's like, Otis, my man, you know, and Otis Day, the singer's like, what, who? This white guy saying hi to me? What? You know, and he's kind of taken back and he's like, man, maybe he's not my man. I don't know. Wrong setting. So just kind of those race undertones that was challenging, I think, for the time. And then actually Otis Day, that wasn't his real name. He changed his name to that though because it became iconic. He became recognized as Otis Day. So he legally changed his name to Otis Day after this movie.
What surprised me was with the whole music scene of Otis Day singing that it went through the entire song. Because, you know, a lot of times with movies, they'll, you know, cut little bits and pieces, but this went from beginning to end. And I found that even though they played the whole song, that it wasn't boring. Like I wasn't sitting there going, you know, wind it up, let's move on to the next thing. Like it still kept me engaged, even though they was basically just sitting there singing a song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, you know, the toga party one where, you know, take it down a little bit lower now, a little bit lower, a little bit higher. You know, they had the whole toga party, which made toga parties the thing after that. That became a staple. And and I think the studio pumped in like $4.5 million in toga party promotions for the movie.
For better or worse, I mean, you definitely could see the influence on frat culture through this movie. This is a guiding guide for frat life to some folks, you know, for better.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Did they really need the movie though? Yeah.
Now, speaking of the frat party, here's what I found interesting was the hole John Belushi made with the guitar.
Yeah.
That was the only physical damage incurred to the house during the entire production. So instead of fixing it, the fraternity actually placed a frame around the hole with an engraved brass tag to commemorate that this is the hole John Belushi made.
Yeah. I remember seeing that in the movie too. He actually put a hole through the drywall.
Yeah.
Now this was shot at the University of Oregon, and they were supposed to do another movie there, and they passed on it, and they regretted it. So when it popped up again, an opportunity to have a movie on a college set, they actually, or I guess in a college setting, they actually took it. And the guy didn't even read the script. He's just like, yes, do it. So. And Dean Warmer's office was actually the president of the college's office. He let him use it. So pretty neat to see.
Let him bring a horse in and everything?
I guess. He didn't, apparently, according to what I read, he didn't double check anything. He's just like, we want our college to have the notoriety of being Aber College, you know, for this movie.
Yeah, I love that scene of the guy trying to get the dead horse out of there. He just standing there trying to figure out how in the world they got that whole horse inside.
Yeah.
He's got the tape measure out, like
measure.
Did you guys notice how he measured too?
No.
Yeah, he measured hoof to hoof.
Well, no, when he goes to the doorway though, his tape measure extends past the door, like he doesn't zero it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, never mind. Chainsaw it is. So he wasn't really measuring anything anyway.
Yeah.
And the Delta Tau Chi Latin motto is Artis Gratius Artis, which is art for art's sake. So they're doing a lot of little Easter eggs there.
Now,
oh yeah, so I'm sorry, let me throw this one little. So they passed on The Graduate. That's what they were going to shoot on the campus.
Okay.
And they passed that, so he didn't want to pass that up because The Graduate was a big film back then.
Mm-hmm.
He should have kept The Graduate and passed on this one, though.
I wonder, did they do anything with like actual in Universal Studio, or is it all on campus for the most part, or do they have some stages set up too? They did.
I think it was all on campus.
Oh, okay. Because the movie is Universal, I believe. So
yeah,
big studio. So just wondered if they built any sets for this or anything like that.
Yeah. Speaking of Universal, so you guys saw at the end of the credits where they was giving you updates on what happened to the people after they graduated. Babs actually did go to Universal Studios. So I'm going to ask you guys this: did you guys watch after the credits rolled?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so you saw the little advertisement for Babs.
Yeah, because she was actually the little thing about her said that she was a tour guide.
Yeah. So Justin, did you see the advertisement at the end that said, "Tell them Babs sent you at Universal Studios"?
Yep.
Okay, so a little known fact that if you saw that advertisement and you actually went to Universal Studios, the ad said to ask for Babs. And as of 1989, Universal stopped doing this. But up to that point, you could, when you went to Universal Studios, if you told them, "Hey, Babs sent me," you'd either get a discount or free entry into the park.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
And which character was that again?
Babs, the lady that at the very end of it, the car pulls away and she's in her lingerie.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
So she was one of the two main girls.
Yeah, the Animal House is one of those where the credits start rolling. I'm like, I got to keep it going because there's probably something at the end here. It's not one of those where you turn it off as soon as the credits start rolling.
So they kind of lined everybody up, and I'll breeze through them here. I wrote them down. So Hoover, who was the president, he ended up becoming a public defender, and this is just made up in the movie. But Pinto, who is the main guy there, he ended up being National Lampoon magazine, which I thought was pretty funny. A little nod to themselves. The main president of the other fraternity, the stuck up one, Marma. I can't even remember. My handwriting's too sloppy to read his last name. It looks like Marmalade, but I know that's not right. Anyway, he was a Nixon's aide and ended up in prison.
Yeah.
And then Stratton was a gynecologist, which, he was the one that they followed all his girlfriends and so forth. Needlemeyer, killed by friendly fire in Vietnam. So he was the big bully.
I read that one made me laugh a little bit. It said,
yeah,
killed in Vietnam by his own troops.
Yeah. And,
I saw that. It's like no surprise.
yeah. Kent Dorfman was a sensitivity trainer, which, after being bullied for so long, that makes sense. D-Day was unknown because D-Day was kind of the guy that didn't have very many lines and was the wild card who looked like he was 40 and, still in college, apparently.
Drove around on a motorcycle all the time.
Yeah. And
whereabouts
then, that was a bad guy.
Unknown for him. Yeah.
Yeah. And Boone and his girlfriend, they got married, divorced, blah, blah, blah. So kind of the one off following through with that. Mm-hmm. And then Bluto, he ends up being a senator, which kind of makes sense for back then. So another play towards, social issues. And then, of course, Babs, tour guide. So
when did you see
guilty in?
When did you see this movie first, do you think, Dave?
Oh, gosh, a long time ago. I mean, I was probably
80s,
in high school. Yeah, sometime through the 80s. I was in high school. Thought it was pretty wild. And then catch it on TV occasionally and watch it just because it's easy to watch, I think. And as Joe said, entertaining. Great soundtrack.
Yeah, it keeps moving pretty quickly too. Good pace, I think, without definitely no meandering around for 10 minutes like Mad Max tended to do.
A lot of hijinks and a lot of interesting things. The guy that plays the stork, they thought he was brain damaged. Yeah.
Now, NBC, when they first aired this on broadcast television in 1981, they had to cut 13 minutes of footage out of it.
I believe that. Makes sense.
There's a scene where two of the frat guys are looking down into this field where I guess I don't know what you'd call it, on campus, like a military training type thing.
ROTT training
yeah,
type deal.
That's it. Yeah, they're making them do push-ups and stuff. They're trying to hit a golf ball at this guy's horse. I don't know. I thought it just kind of funny where he hits it. He's like, I hooked it. It flies in through a window into the soup in the kitchen. And he gets another one, hits it. He's like, I sliced it. It goes through like the dean's window, breaks all his stuff. I don't know. Thought that was a funny part. Just
well, and did you notice the golf ball made its return when Bluto was at the trying to check out girls where they dump their trays and he ends up eating it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I found this.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, it's kind of weird how, not weird, but interesting how they pitted the two fraternities against each other, and they both played the iconic roles to the T. So when the pledges got accepted into the fraternities, you had the Delta House, carefree guys, and Bluto, Sergeant at Arms, has this job of giving you your fraternity name, and he's just making them up, except for Flounder. I thought along about this one, Flounder, and he says, why? And he's like, why not? So no reason really, even though he said he thought long and hard. And their celebration was, we're going to pour beer on them, and it's a happy celebration. Everybody's getting along. And then the mean fraternity with the upper echelon guys, super serious, and robes and candles and paddling, and you kind of had.
They're putting on the ring. He's saying something about obedience at all costs or something like.
Yeah. So kind of slipping in those social cues in the two fraternities for how it plays out.
Secret society type thing of just weirdos with candles and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was funny too.
Yeah, when I seen the pledges with the paddle, that reminded me of an episode of My Name is Earl, where they go to the college and his brother Randy actually winds up in a frat house. So he ends up being a pledge. And there's a scene where they're getting ready to paddle Randy. And Randy asks him, says, why are you guys doing this? And they said, it's tradition. He said, I'll tell you right now, he said, I love playing with fireworks, and I love drinking beer, but I'm telling you guys right now, if somebody paddles me with that, I'm going to kick their butt. And of course he didn't say butt, but it's like, So then they all start looking at each other and going, so they start beating each other with the paddles because, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay. And that's the first thing I thought of was like Randy on Earl saying, yeah, if somebody paddles me, I'm going to kick their butt.
Yeah. Okay. Well, is there anything else you guys noticed or thought about? Is there any moral dilemmas that you kind of thought, man, that's just not right? I will say one scene that stood in my mind is when they took the ladies that they didn't really know. They play this card of picking up chicks. It's kind of crazy. They find a girl that passed away, and they go into the all girls college and play the old pity me card, and they get dates, and then they go into the bar, and then they run out and leave the girls there. And that's like just a terrible thing to do. You leave these underage college girls in a bar in the middle of nowhere, and they got to walk home, assuming they got out there without getting, raped or drunk or whatever, And I was just like, man. And then the crazy part is the girls are like, oh, those guys are scoundrel. And one girl's like, I don't know, he was kind of cute. And I'm thinking, you got left in a bar. However far away from your college, and you got to walk back, and you think the guy's cute still? What kind of deal is that? But I guess that was their way of playing it off. But I thought that scene was just wrong. But
yeah, and I mean, being a peeping Tom too, obviously, it's
oh yeah.
I guess humor is a little bit different than everybody nowadays. I don't think anyone would find that funny. They'd be like, oh, that's terrible, that's illegal, that's this and that.
Yeah.
That's in a lot of older movies though. Just the kid that's peeking through the hole and into the girls' locker room or whatever. It wasn't necessarily seen the same way as it is today. I'd say.
Yeah, you're right. Did you guys notice when he fell off the ladder that they had a big pad set up?
Yeah,
and bounced.
Super obvious. Yeah, the grass just like you could see a square cut out of the grass with where the pad was. Yeah. Still, that's a pretty serious fall. You gotta know what you're doing, falling that high off of the ladder like that.
Oh yeah.
That's 1970. Right.
Oh, another thing is, remember at the end they're all descending upon that parade and causing mayhem, and he's up. The Belushi character's up on the roof and as a pirate, and he grabs a banner and like swings down, but then you could see the wire as well. Like it's really obvious too that They
didn't have a
make
big
it look like
budget.
he's just grabbing the banner, but then you could see the wire like plain as day.
Were you too surprised that they had the car that broke out afterwards in the parade? That surprised you at all that they became the bad guys for real instead of like the hapless good guys? They became the bad guys in the death mobile.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought it kind of went with their theme of the bad boys of the campus, though. Yeah.
Counterculture.
Yeah.
Now, I did find this little tidbit and found it interesting. In the original theatrical version, there was a part which the Deltas go through a medical screening after having to register for the draft after being expelled. In one scene, D-Day turns his feet around backwards because his ankles were actually double jointed. They had to actually cut that scene out after a few months because many young men were hurting themselves trying to turn their feet around.
Oh yeah. Like every movie, you see something, you got to replicate it, regardless of how good or bad it is. So no surprise there.
Like the chugging an entire bottle of Jack Daniels. I know I've come across videos of people actually doing that on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah, chugging a gallon of milk. List goes the Tide Pod challenge. List goes on.
Yeah.
That's Darwinism in effect. But that chugging the liquor was actually iced tea, which I was surprised because I was like, Belushi, he died of drug overdose and so forth. I was like, he might have actually just said, just give it to me and let's go.
Yeah.
My only problem with I wish there was more lines or scenes with Belushi because this is my first time watching it.
Yeah.
And I was so entertained with Belushi. I wish that they had more scenes with Belushi in it. I think that would have just upped it just a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, he was an unknown at that time, so it's kind of one of those deals where, how much can you fall in love with this unknown actor that has a small role and then they turn it into a bigger role. So, and really they said though in the notes that he was supposed to be, let me see if I can find it. He was he was a cross between the Cookie Monster and someone else, silent comedy guy.
Charlie Chaplin?
Yeah, Charlie Chaplin, maybe.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
That's kind of when they sat down with him, they said, this is kind of what we want your character to be.
Yep. Because a lot of it is him kind of running around using physical comedy and his face to get a laugh that's not necessarily dialogue based all the time.
Yeah, and part of it too is he was perfect for that role because his grandmother didn't speak English, so he kind of had that about him where Harpo Marx and the Cookie Monster.
Okay.
And his grandmother spoke very little English, so he had learned to work without a lot of dialogue and could communicate comedy through other means.
Yep. So
they kind of said, you fit this role, and this is kind of what we want you to do, and he fell right into it.
Yeah, like Jeff said, I mean, just a simple thing of you're in the cafeteria going down, and he is just piling and piling food on a tray, which someone else could do that same scene and might not be really funny at all, but the way he plays, he takes a bite out of something here or there and
puts it back. That's how he opens up a sandwich, take a bite.
It's just like a 30-second thing of him putting food on a tray, but it's funny.
Yeah, you can tell somebody, well, we're going to shoot 30 seconds you putting food on a tray, and you're going, that's not funny, but yet here's John Belushi that
and that was all improvised. They actually started that, and there was a note on it that said that, when he started going down the line, it was just going to be a quick 5-second shot. And they're like, keep doing what you're doing, cameraman, stay here and let's just ride this out. And it ended up being a big part of the movie. So there was that. And did you guys notice when they took the horse into the building, like he comes running over and kind of stops and turns and looks and then runs over, stops, and he falls down, and just like comedy without any words and, just a silly intent.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you guys ready for your ratings?
One other thing, a thought that came to mind. It's just funny some of the weird things they throw in sometimes, which are just like totally unrealistic. Like Kevin Bacon, a big crowd runs towards him and flattens him out, and they pan over to like a cartoonish, like totally flattened person on his side. It's just a little. I mean, I don't dislike it or anything, but it's just interesting that in a movie that's otherwise kind of realistic in some ways, it's in real life, but then they throw these cartoonish things here and there. Well, like the golf ball too, flying like in through and into the soup or whatever. It's just
and the lady doesn't even notice. She just
they take some liberties with reality sometimes, and it's pretty funny most of the time. Yeah, the getting flattened thing was a little weird though. I was like,
yeah, that was a little too far.
Yeah,
and the movie was actually 3 hours long, and they had to cut a lot out, so it's kind of surprising they left that in there.
Yeah,
I would almost think you could trade that out for something better that would stay more to the routine they had going on.
Yeah, another thing was he just like the guy leading the whole parade. He just runs in and grabs his baton, pushes him away, and then he leads them to a dead end, and all the band just gets like stuck, like lemmings, like still playing their instruments, bumping up against the wall. It's just like that was funny, but like again, taking some liberties with reality and just throwing in some gags. They're just totally off the wall like that.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I can go ahead and throw my rating out.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking, that might skew my thoughts on it a little bit because I didn't really. I mean, I noticed that wasn't realistic, but I didn't realize that might take away from the movie for somebody that hadn't seen it as many times as I have.
Yeah,
because I kind of expected that and I knew it. So
a couple minutes goes by and they pan back to the band and they're still
plowing in the wall. That's what I was thinking about. I was like, man, I don't know. Yeah,
I thought it was kind of funny though, just so outlandish. But yeah, I'm gonna go large on this one. I enjoyed it. I don't have anything bad to say about it, except I mean, definitely some questionable eyebrow raising stuff in there, but just look past it and keep going. That's what I did.
For 2021, this was made in 1978, so you're talking, 40 years, 43 years old, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of the humor still transfers over, but there are some of the race, social, political, and sexual issues that detract from it some now, but back then that was the norm. So it's kind of, I'm going to go with a large as well. I think it's something that, like, when I see on TV, I do watch it, especially for my favorite gags or gaffes in the movie. Mm-hmm. Kind of like those parts, and I can watch those at any time.
Yeah, I liked it more in Caddyshack, just for what it's worth. I liked it a little better.
Yeah, it was a little more.
I like Lucy more than I liked Bill Murray's part in the other one.
Yeah, I agree. Joseph, where are you falling?
I got to give this. I wanted to give it a large. If they had a few more scenes with John Belushi being John Belushi, I would have gave it a solid large. But I got to go medium on this one.
Oh, hey,
got to be true to yourself. Gotta stay true.
Don't encourage him, Justin. Just don't think he doesn't know good comedy when he sees it.
Yeah.
Oh, I openly admit the comedy was spot on. There was a lot of great, classic comedy stuff on there. And
the soundtrack makes it a large by itself. The soundtrack's just phenomenal.
So, Joe, you'd say a medium with a very full one with some popcorn spilling out. A medium.
Yeah, an overflowing medium.
Okay.
Overflowing medium. Holy cow! All right.
So I'm going to pose this question to you guys. One of the things we've discussed a lot of in this episode is, the social, racial, political issues being, discussed in the movie. The way society is today, everyone is so quote unquote sensitive and all that. Could this be one of the things that makes movies like this so classic? We're not afraid to go down these avenues. We're not afraid to discuss these topics. That nowadays people want to water movies down so much that we got to make it all squeaky clean that it's hard to make a comedy or a classic movie like this because society today wants everything so watered down and so politically correct.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think this movie is a little bit of a breath of fresh air, and that's why I gave it a large, just because they tackled some of those issues and they seemed unafraid to do so. The race, the politics, the sexism in there, those things happen. And, I'm a big believer in let's not pretend that they don't and tackle the issues as they are. But this movie kind of, you wouldn't get away with it today, I don't think, but it is kind of nice to see that back in the late 70s, people were kind of staging their own protests about these issues as they saw them. Oh, and did we mention the professor, having an affair with a student and doing drugs with the students? So that's a big one. That one was a little startling to me. He's like, the professor, hey, you guys want to smoke pot? And they're like, well, yeah. And that it was a big deal. And then he has an affair with one of his students. That would be a scandal that would make national news. And it has made national news. But, they just played it off as like, well, just one of those things.
Yeah, they weren't necessarily glorifying it or anything, but just kind of at least acknowledging that this type of stuff does happen in real life, and we're not going to totally pretend it doesn't, I guess, was their take on it. Yeah.
And I mean, and the boyfriend walked in on the affair kind of deal, and it's like, okay. And then they make up. So it's kind of weird that type of deal happens, and it happened in the movie and was portrayed as such. So tackled some big issues in a comedy, slapstick comedy, but still tackling those issues.
Yeah, I found it interesting where the scene where they're smoking pot with the professor. They said in the broadcast TV version that the only part they showed up to the point where he goes and locks the door and turns around and grins, and they cut to the next scene on broadcast TV. They didn't even show any.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
What I thought was funny was they were in the bathroom, in the bathtub, and the bathroom kind of locked away, as if the police are going to come barging in.
Yeah, it's funny. You imagine like the person sitting there with the like, okay, cut here button, like the person that is deciding where the line is. That I mean, that's somebody's job to go through and say, okay, too far, take that out. This,
Yeah.
I mean, it totally changes the movie completely once you start cutting a bunch of stuff out.
Yeah.
And they cut a bunch out. They had 3 hours worth and narrowed it down to an hour and a half. So interesting stuff. Okay. Well, I think I feel like I had a good pick. So Joe, a lot of pressure on you, buddy, to pull a good one out because Justin flopped with the Road Warriors.
That's right.
Well, actually, I was happy with the Road Warriors series.
You picked Road Warrior. I picked Mad Max.
Oh, that's right. But shoot, brought that to light, Justin. I was hoping you'd just kind of roll with that one. But anyway, the Mad Max series are iconic movies. But
yeah, Dave kind of held us up on that one, told us we had to watch Road Warriors. Like, really?
It was better. It was better.
It was better, I thought.
Made more sense. Yeah. So you kind of have to. All right. So anyway, I felt like my pick was pretty decent. So Joe, what do you got for next week? You going to tell everybody now, or are they going to have to wait?
Yes, I want to see your guys' reactions, and I want to see if you guys have either watched or even heard of this movie. This movie, it's from the 80s. Doesn't have very high ratings online. I've watched it a lot over the years. So I'm anxious to see where you guys fall in line on this one. Howard the Duck.
Never heard of it.
I've heard of it. I've watched part of it. I probably watched it all, but I don't remember.
Okay,
Howard the Duck.
It was based off of, apparently there was a comic called Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
And that's what they based it off of. So, yeah, it's one of those underground cult classics.
Okay.
Where a lot of people kind of poop on it and saying it's a terrible movie, and even Rotten Tomatoes, it only has like a 13% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
And it's a George Lucas film, really?
Yes.
Definitely never seen it. This will be all new for me.
And I've seen it a lot of times. And I've seen it a lot of times over the years in what I call the bargain bins, where they have those bins at like Walmart where you can just basically dig forever for the $3, $5 movies, and Howard the Duck's usually always in that bin. So after watching Animal House, I was going through and other movies you might like, and stumbled upon Howard the Duck. I was like, oh, I got to see if the guys are in on this one. I want to see, because I know it has such a bad rep, but I want to see if you guys, where you guys fall in on this one.
I'll give it a fair watch. I'll be.
Hey, yeah. I mean, I remember seeing parts of it. I don't know that I've watched all of it.
Well, this is one of the early works of Leah Thompson. She's one of the stars in the movie. So you're going to be
Tim Robbins.
So you're going to see Leah Thompson with 80s hair. So
nice. Okay, I'm in. I like it, Joe. I think this would be a good pick. And I'm kind of surprised because I don't really remember anything about it. So I may not have watched all of it. I'm almost positive I haven't seen the whole thing. So this would be a new one for me.
Yeah, since Justin and I are the same age, I was going to be surprised if he actually saw it, but I'm a little surprised that you haven't seen it.
It's one of those things that, it sounds kind of like a fake, having a duck. That's not my cup of tea. So Duck is the main character. Aliens. So wasn't my deal, but hey, I'm in. I'll watch it. I like watching movies.
It says it Nominated for 7 Razzie Awards and won 4. No, the Razzies being, where people get together and say, what's the worst of the worst?
Well, we'll find out. All right. Well, that'll be next week on Been Here, Watch That. So that's interesting. Okay. All right. So be an interesting watch. I'm excited.
Me too.
All right. Well,
so plan on doing it again this time next week, right?
Yeah. Right, we'll be back for more.
All right. So,
I got the feeling that this is really going to boost my pick of Animal House.
Yeah, it's going to make you look like a genius on that one.
Yeah.
He's trying to recover.
Ramp yours up. You might have an easy time of it after this whole Howard the Duck deal.
All right. So next week will be episode number 7. BeenThereWatchThat.com. Be sure to go back there. Check out. Gives you a little more background info on how we rated each one. See if you agree with us on each of those movies we've reviewed. And also on social, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, BTWT Pod, all hosted by Anchor FM. Joe, you got anything else you want to throw in?
That pretty much covers me for the week. I'm like I said, I'm anxious to hear your guys' perspective on Howard the Duck. I'm wanting to see if it falls into the Mad Max category or if we actually get our first burnt popcorn.
We'll find out. So, and I would say as well, for anybody out there listening to the podcast or watching this, throw us out some suggestions, throw out some comments, get involved. I mean, come on now. This day and age, there's no reason not to be involved. Comment, suggestions on movies, because you never know. We're just pulling from the cuff here on movies we want to see, but maybe someone has a really good suggestion that we can look at and kind of entertain. Yeah. Let us know. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you and great job. Another good Been There, Watch That episode.
And we'll see everybody next week.
Yeah, next week with Howard the Duck.